Hey guys, today I don't really have a script. I'm just going to talk about dreams and a little bit about what happens when we block them or don't experience them anymore through certain means. So let's get into it. For myself and many psychologists, counselors, therapists, even some psychiatrists, dreams are very important. They were really the first thing that got me into psychology, mental health, consciousness, all these sort of really esoteric concepts that I was very driven to because of my experiences of unpacking my dreams, of analyzing them, of really pulling at these themes and these symbols, and I was really doing dream interpretation in, like, a really psychoanalytic sense when I was maybe 12. I started it pretty early, it was very interesting to me. I've always been very excited by sort of non-traditional states of experience. I think, when I was a kid, when you stand up too fast and you kinda get dizzy and you pass out a little bit? As a kid, I used to love that, and I also used to love when my dreams would get really funky and crazy and, all sort of, like, very unpredictable stuff would happen, and so dreams just became a pretty central part of my experience. I would look forward to them at night. They would really impact me throughout the day. If I had a very intense dream or a dream loaded with a lot of emotion, that would kind of sit with me for the rest of the day sometimes for weeks if it was really important and I thought about it quite a lot. So dreams were a way for me to process. They were just a really important avenue for me to understand my psyche and my unconscious. And I think that's what dreams are essentially, is that they're the way that the mind processes life, processes emotions, processes feelings. I know that there's a lot of neurological conversation when it comes to dreams of what their function is or why they developed. I like to separate the brain and the mind. They're not the same thing. And so I'll leave the brain stuff up to the neurologist as far as like how that developed in a very like cell-based sense. But that's not important to me. To me, I understand dreams as a way of the mind processing things that we're not processing during the day. That's really important, is that dreams are processing stuff we haven't already worked through. Dreams aren't very clear a lot of times. Like, there's not a ton of clarity in terms of what even is happening a lot of times, but also, like, what we're supposed to take away from it, and I think that ambiguity, that sort of level of personal interpretation was really interesting to me growing up, and I think that it makes it sort of a process that is just yours. Dream exploration is truly only yours to do. You can do it with an analyst, you can do it with your counselor, your therapist, you can do it with other people, you can even do it with friends. I've actually got a lot of really great feedback when I've sort of processed my dreams with friends. But ultimately, the juice of it, the content is you. It's your life, it's your thoughts, it's your emotions, it's your experiences. And even if it's, really off the wall or concerning, it's trying to tell you something. Dreams are a way of the unconscious communicating to you because look, the unconscious is probably sending you a lot of messages. It's sending us all messages throughout the day, and a lot of them we're just ignoring. We're busy with work, we're caught up in these dopamine activities, we're watching things, we're playing things. And so we're not catching these really subtle signals of communication from deep in our psyche. They're being sent. A good process of introspection is sort of understanding where those signals from the unconscious are coming from. But that's a higher level skill. Right now, dream exploration, that's a really base level skill and something that anyone can get good at. I mean, I got great at it at 13 years old. No matter where you are in your life, you can get good at it, and it will reveal a lot about you and really give you a greater sense of individuality. It should bring some clarity to, ironically, despite how unclear and sort of vague and weird dreams are, they can bring us a lot of clarity. So they are a really effective tool for kind of wading our way through confusion when it comes to our identity, our experiences, things like that. Now, I know some people say they don't dream at all. I've looked at some research, it's very low numbers, like less than 10% say that they don't remember any dreams, and maybe like less than 5 say they don't dream at all. In those cases, maybe it's a neurological condition, maybe it's a sleep disorder. More likely, it's probably something that they're doing or taking that's sort of blocking that access to their dreams. So I don't know if that makes sense, but dreams are your unconscious, sending information up to the conscious mind. But that can get blocked off. You can close that door. There's multiple ways to do that. To me, the easiest has been cannabis. So anytime I take a lot of cannabis before going to bed, I typically am not going to have a dream, or at least I won't remember it. I actually don't think I'm having them at all, to be fair, because I always remember my dreams. And I notice that I wake up with a sort of emotional valence. So if a dream was exciting, I'll wake up a little excited. If it was stressful, I'll wake up a little stressed. If a dream was like, you got to turn that homework assignment in, you're gonna be late, even though I haven't been in school for a very long time, I will wake up with that pressure. And so when I take a lot of, and it's not always just on lower amounts, but when I take a lot of cannabis, that gets blocked. It gets cut off. So there are various substances, medications, actions, alcohol definitely can block dreams for some people, not for everyone. And it will be individual to you. So some people don't seem to get any dream block on cannabis and they dream like crazy. It's going to be very specific to you. But you're probably wondering, well, what happens when it's blocked? Is that a problem? And maybe for some of you that find your dreams to be very powerful, almost too powerful, to the degree that it's like kind of starting your day off in a bad foot, um, you may even like that you don't get dreams. You may even like the idea that there's something out there that you can take to cut off your dreams. And while I can understand that because they do bring a lot of energy forth, a lot of emotional energy, and they do sometimes extract some from us, I think that there's a lot of risk that comes with blocking that connection to our dreams. Like I've said, dreams are accessing what's below our conscious awareness. It brings it to the surface. Things that we probably need to be paying attention to, our deeper conscious mind. The mind is like an iceberg. There's what we know, which is that top part, and then there's a lot of what we're not paying attention to, these thoughts, these feelings, these impulses, the what Jung would call the collective unconscious, which is this sort of like humanity based well of energy and knowledge and themes, symbols, archetypes that we sort of are all accessing at given times. What happens when dreams bring that energy to the fore, when they bring it up into our awareness, is that it's now ours to do something with. What happens when we sort of block that off? In my terms, I sort of consider it a psycho-spiritual, or you could put it in terms of like an emotional block, which is that there's juice to squeeze down there and we're not really getting to it. There's important thoughts and stuff to mine from deep. And if we block it off, we're just not going to get that. There's a whole realm of our experience that we're not going to have access to that can actually be pretty important and actually really, really cool. What happens when we block that off is that we just build it up. Just like when you're shoving emotions down and you're not processing them during the day, if you're shoving them down and not processing them during the night, they're going to bottle up. That's going to be tension and stress that will just get compressed over time in your body. I mean, that has to get carried somewhere. The mind is an ethereal, sort of non corporeal sort of thing. I mean, it can't contain in a cellular sense. And so your cells are going to contain that. They're going to experience oxidative stress, these free radicals. The body will build up that tension and you will feel it. And then it can start to show itself in inflammatory cycles that eventually can develop into autoimmune disorders, Crohn's disease, vitiligo. I'll be vulnerable here. I have vitiligo, and vitiligo for me developed out of a mental health crisis. It came when I was at my lowest and I felt that the mental distress hit such a point that it really started to destroy my cells. I developed an autoimmune disorder, which is now under control because I'm mentally healthy. It hasn't spread in many years, but it would spread every year because my stress was continuing to grow. I wasn't managing it. I wasn't addressing it. I was smoking way too much weed and not really remembering my dreams. There was a lot of processing that I wasn't working through at the time, and I developed an autoimmune disorder. And I'm not saying that every autoimmune disorder is mentally caused. I think a lot of it's environmental toxins and things like that. But I'm just saying that that's the risk. It's happened to me when I wasn't processing my emotional energy and it was just welling up and just pressing down and really becoming a problem to me. It bore down on my cells. It showed itself in my biology further than just in my mind. And so the real risk when we're not processing our dreams, when we're not going through that experience of processing. It's a method of processing. When we're not doing that, we build that up. Now, that's not to say that dreams are the only way to process. You could never dream and be a mentally healthy person, but that takes time. Your dreams can process hours every night. In those sleep stages, you have potentially hours every night that you could be doing emotional processing and your brain wants to do it, But if you're taking things like cannabis, and I'll be honest, I do think this applies to SSRIs as well. I have worked with plenty of clients, especially youth, that get on an SSRI or an antipsychotic, and it does establish a psychospiritual block. It blocks their dreams, it reduces their awareness, which, when you're talking about a kid that's severely traumatized, that's not the worst thing for the time being, just for them to, get some distance, get a breather, focus on the stuff that they have to, like school or whatever. But then as they're going through the treatment, they're hopefully building up a greater awareness that can overcome. And sometimes it doesn't. And we have to have conversations about maybe getting off SSRIs or choosing a different one, finding one that doesn't kind of make that same sort of block that can be really psychologically harmful. Even though you're taking the medications to help you deal with depression, if they help you avoid dealing with depression, then they're not helping you. It actually makes me think of The Giver. I've been thinking about this book a lot lately, actually. Pretty formative book for me, but just a really great book. And I think about the pills they took. The people in the community can't see color at all. He gets to see color over time because it's a memory that he takes on. Great book. But everyone in the community takes these pills, which essentially reduce their emotionality, reduce their connection to the deeper parts of their psyche so that they follow the rules, so that they don't have strong emotions that risk the community cohesion. It's a dystopic novel for sure. And I think it's interesting that they have this concept of these pills that make life gray, that make it less emotional. And I've been sort of connecting that to SSRIs lately. So if we're taking anything, no matter what it is, or we're engaging in an action like, sleep deprivation, that psychospiritual block is a problem. We want to do our best to release that block, to open ourselves back up to all of that useful, if you want to put it in terms of like it's useful data, or you can just say like that's the juice. That's the important stuff. That's the stuff that I need to know about myself, that I want to uncover, that I want to understand better. I mean, really, the process of counseling, of psychoanalysis, all these things is building up your awareness, enhancing your awareness of yourself, of your interaction on others, of how the world interacts on you. All of this useful information can really become blocked to you. And if you can access it, that's an issue. So finding a way to reduce that psychospiritual, that dream emotional block can be really important. And maybe that is just stopping whatever substance you're taking. Maybe it's taking more of something else. I don't know of any medications necessarily that enhance dreaming, but there are certain herbs. So things like mugwort, African dream root, Selene capensis, that's my personal favorite. I actually tried that when I was 14. It was the very first thing I ever ordered online, was this just dried root that you sort of like grind up, make into a froth, and then consume before the night. And it makes for very, very vivid dreams. And so I was 13, 14 years old doing this, having the craziest lucid dreams, really discovering myself and learning more about myself. It was a great experience. So if you are taking something that you don't feel comfortable stopping right now, but you really do want to reopen that connection to that deeper realm of the psyche and you want to experience dreams again, then there are things that you can look into that will enhance your dreams. I don't know if this was interesting to you guys today. Dreaming is very interesting to me, and I think that it's sort of like baby steps into psychoanalysis. So I really loved it growing up. I still do the dream exploration now. Dream analysis is still one of my favorite things to do with clients, even. So I think it's really cool that we have that experience of dreams. Even other animals have them, which is super cool too. Our dreams are essentially the brain working when we aren't even aware of it. I think that's pretty cool because that means that we're always improving. We are always growing. Our brain is constantly trying to iterate, to grow, to improve, to process. The brain loves doing that stuff. And so let's just let it do that as much as we can. If you don't dream, you can make up for it by processing a lot. So doing a lot of meditation, doing a lot of processing, thinking a lot, reducing the distractions in your life so that you can really tune into those lower levels. There are versions of meditation that essentially get you to a dream state anyway. So it can be done. I'm not saying if you don't experience dreams right now that you're just going to mentally fall apart. There's ways that it can be done. There's ways that you can process without needing that time. But if it can be multiple hours per night that your brain is processing, let that happen. let's let those dreams open it right up. Let's get the juice, let's get the benefit out of that, and let's really see where we can go with it. To me, dreams are very important. They're very cool. They're fun. As frustrating as they are that you can't run, I have still not been able to run in any of my dreams yet. I think they're great and they are really an important step when it comes to introspection and uncovering parts of our psyche that might be important to us. I hope this was helpful today. Leave some comments if you've had some dreams in the past that expanded your sense of self, or you use dreaming in a way to grow your identity or your ability level. Let me know. I think dreams are great and I'd love to hear more about them. Thanks for watching today.